Imagine walking through a crack in the earth. For over a mile, the sky is reduced to a sliver of blue, hemmed in by towering cliffs of rose-red stone. Then suddenly the darkness breaks. You emerge into a sun-drenched canyon to find a 12-story palace staring back at you. Not built with bricks, not assembled with mortar, but exhaled from the mountain itself. This is Petra. But everything you think you know about this lost city is wrong. It wasn't a city of the dead, nor was it a primitive desert outpost. It was a high-tech, egalitarian metropolis that mastered fluid dynamics and seismic engineering 2,000 years before the modern world. And as recently as late 2024, it has given up a secret hidden beneath its most famous monument that changes the timeline of the Middle East forever. To understand Petra, we have to understand the people who called it shelter. The Nabataeans began as nomadic ghosts of the desert. In 312 BCE, the Greek king Antigonus sent an army to crush them, only to find a people who could disappear into the rocks. They didn't just survive the desert, they owned it. The objective was simple, but impossible. Build a permanent capital in a basin that receives only 6 inches of rain a year. To do this, they didn't just build a city, they built an artificial oasis. They transformed a geological death trap into a global trade hub that monopolized the world's supply of frankincense and myrrh. But how did a tribe of tent dwellers become the greatest hydraulic and subtractive architects in human history? The first mystery of the shelter is the water. If you stood in the center of Petra 2,000 years ago, you wouldn't see a dusty canyon. You would see lush gardens, public fountains, and a massive pool complex called the Paradisos. The Nabataeans were the Silicon Valley engineers of antiquity. They tapped into the Ain Musa spring miles away and designed a dual pipeline system that remains a marvel of fluid dynamics. On one side of the entrance gorge, the Seek, they carved a gravity-fed channel. On the other, they laid pressurized terracotta pipes. Modern computational fluid dynamics reveals that these pipes were set at critical angles to prevent upstream surges. They knew how to maintain a steady, non-turbulent flow so the pressure wouldn't burst the clay joints. They built over 200 underground cisterns, lined with waterproof hydraulic plaster, ensuring that even during a multi-year drought, the 30,000 citizens of Petra would never go thirsty. They didn't just hide from the desert, they domesticated it. Then there is the architecture. In a traditional city, you start at the ground and build up. In Petra, you start at the clouds and carve down. This is subtractive architecture. Look at the Treasury, or Al-Khazneh. It stands 128 feet tall. Because timber was scarce, they couldn't build massive scaffolding. Instead, they used the ledge method. Masons would climb to the very top of the cliff and cut a narrow horizontal platform. As they carved the intricate Corinthian capitals and the statues of goddesses, they quarried the floor beneath their feet, moving downward. The mountain itself was their scaffolding. This meant there was zero room for error. A single misplaced swing of a chisel at the top would ruin the symmetry of the entire 12-story facade. There were no second drafts in Petra. This was a city where stone was treated like silk. Even their freestanding buildings, like the temple of Qasr al-Bint, were ahead of their time. This massive structure survived centuries of earthquakes that leveled other Roman cities. Why? Because the Nabataeans practiced anti-seismic engineering. They laced their stone walls with a matrix of flexible wooden beams. When the earth shook, the wood absorbed the shear forces, allowing the stone to dance rather than break. The shelter of Petra wasn't just physical, it was social. Unlike the Roman Empire, which was built on the backs of millions of slaves, Petra appears to have been an egalitarian anomaly. Historical records and archaeological finds suggest a society of specialized professionals, masons, navigators, and coppersmiths, who were compensated for their labor. But the most shocking revelation comes from the status of women. While women in Rome or Egypt were often treated as property, Nabataean women like Adan were economic powerhouses. Legal documents found in Dead Sea caves show women owning vast date palm orchards, executing complex land deals, and inheriting estates without male guardians. This autonomy was a necessity. The men were often gone for months on trade caravans, leaving women to run the metropolis. They were so central to the state that the Nabataean kings minted coins featuring the Jugate bus, the king and queen side by side, equal in the eyes of the treasury. For decades, we thought the treasury was just a beautiful mask, with nothing behind it but a small chamber. But in late 2024, technology finally pierced the floor of the monument. Using ground-penetrating radar and a technique called optically stimulated luminescence, researchers discovered Tomb 62C. Hidden beneath the paved courtyard in front of the treasury lay a subterranean vault that had been sealed for 2,000 years. Inside, they found 12 fully articulated human skeletons, surrounded by bronze and ceramic grave goods. Most intriguing was a skeleton clutching the top of a broken first-century ceramic jug. Because of its shape and its location at the site where Indiana Jones filmed the Holy Grail scene, the media went into a frenzy. But the real treasure was the DNA and isotopic data. These 12 individuals represent the founding fathers of Petra's Golden Age. They are the keys to understanding the genetic and dietary origins of a people who seemingly appeared out of nowhere to build a paradise in the sand. The story of Petra ends not with a conquest, but with a shift in the wind. When the Romans took over in 106 CE, they tried to maintain the city, but the trade routes shifted to the sea. Then the earthquakes came. The 363 CE event shattered the pipes. The 551 CE event broke the spirit of the city. Eventually, the cisterns filled with sand, and the Rose City was left to the Bedouin and the ghosts. But the lesson of Petra, the shelter story, is one of resilience through integration. The Nabataeans didn't fight the geology of Jordan. They listened to it. They used the iron-rich sandstone as insulation, the gravity of the canyons as a motor for their water, and the egalitarianism of their culture as the glue for their economy. Today, as we face our own environmental challenges, Petra stands as a 2,000-year-old reminder. A civilization is only as strong as its relationship with its environment. Next time you look at a skyscraper of steel and glass, remember the people who built a city by taking the mountain away. And stay tuned because as Tomb 62C proves, we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of the Rose Red City.